Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Fortress, and I'm joined by sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
No, please, call me Nightman.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I am a prickly pear. That's just like last time, only it took twice as long. That's for you, Adam.
Oh my goodness. We are in for an extra long one today, everybody, because we are talking the Snyder Cut. That's right. 2017 is here again in 2021 somehow, and it's twice as long as it was previously. So we're going to be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League cut that debuted here on HBO Max this year, or this weekend, rather. And, if the Rotten Tomatoes score is to be believed, everyone enjoyed it. Do we enjoy it as much as everyone else? Well, stick around and find out for all of that kind of good stuff. But before we get started, I do want to say a couple of things. First and foremost, we have a brand new show that is out right now, everybody. It's called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier 30 Questions, another in a long line of our 30 Questions show where we ask 30 questions about the new show on Disney+. Good news for you, if you listen to WandaVision 30 Questions, you're already subscribed to that podcast. It couldn't be much simpler. If not, but... go check out Falcon and the Winter Soldier 30 Questions, available wherever you find finer podcasts. It's a good time this week, right?
Yeah, it was.
Get into a lot of that kind of cool Marvel-y sort of stuff. And of course, we do want to say a giant thank you to everyone who helped support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. There you get the pre-show, post-show, and of course the Dinger Zone. This week's Dinger Zone will be talking about a little bit more of Zack Snyder's Justice League, really more about where we're going in the future with DC and all the DC EU properties and all that kind of good stuff. So do check us out over there, patreon.com/HMP. Not to mention, we have two brand new people over at Patreon. First and foremost, coming in at the $5 level, we got your boy Dave Mattingly. Dave, I believe our friend Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet has an HMP nickname for you.
All right, so Dave Mattingly, it's not very often I hear the last name Mattingly, and I'm sure your entire life you've gotten Don Mattingly, and you know he was a baseball player who played for the Yankees, and no one cares, except this. His nickname was Donnie Baseball, right? Your name doesn't exactly work like that with what we're talking about here, so I'm keeping the thread going. Your HMP nickname is Big Dave Movies.
I like it.
Hey, thanks.
And do something about those sideburns, why don't you? And also coming in at that $5 level, we got Patrick Hicks. What do you got for Patrick?
Patrick Hicks, your HMP nickname is Mr. Squash Hands.
Oh.
You could take that in a lot of different avenues. I like it. So if you would like to get your own HMP nickname, and of course, like I said, all the kind of good stuff that goes along with this show and supporting the show at the exact same time, we really appreciate that. Patreon.com/HMP. We appreciate all of you guys doing that. And if you can't do that, for heaven's sake, at least go over to like iTunes and drop us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And we got another one here. This is our 200th review on iTunes, which is pretty sweet. And it comes to us from one of our favorites, Dave Fakeloni, whose email, by the way, is davefakeloni@gmail.com.
I love it.
I love that guy so much. All right, and this is entitled, This Podcast, figuratively, I'm going to say saved my life because iTunes cuts it off. I don't know what the rest of it is. But it reads as follows. Let me set the table. I had a favorite nerd/movie/comic book podcast that sated my weekly hunger for geek news. Then, strengthening my theory that God hates me, the podcast ended without warning. I was left alone, nay, adrift, with no direction. What to do, where to turn. After an intense panic and eating my feelings, I knew I had to get it together. Then it hit me. I'll search for other podcasts, and search I did. After a few false starts, I found a treasure in a dung heap that is the internet, Hero Movie Podcast. This is a humdinger of a podcast. See what I did there? It's so good, like picnicking in a rowboat on a majestic lake with Sylvester Stallone good.
That's pretty good.
Adam plays host / producer of the show. Bruce's big brain, an encyclopedia of comic book knowledge that adds a certain gravitas other podcasts only dream of having. Then there's the insurance guy, Sean Kovacs. He replaced that other guy that worked in some form or other, and who he coincidentally was named Sean too. The first Sean was super funny. Anyway, if you like comic book movie news and commentary, you will not find a better podcast than Hero Movie Podcast. It's informative, funny, and an essential part of my podcast lineup. Take it from me, Dave Fakeloni, because after I found the podcast, I went back and listened to every single one. Oh, my word.
Oh, my gosh.
Do yourself a favor, floss. And while you're flossing, listen to Hero Movie Podcast. 17 stars!
Oh, man. God really does hate him if he listened to every one in a row.
My word, that is a lot.
Torture that boy with over 350 hours worth of programming.
But sweet Shanzi, can my HMP name be Gravitas now?
Why? Oh, because everybody keeps using that descriptor for you?
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
I picture more like the Beast, and we call him Gravitos.
Oh, I like that.
That seems a bit more like Bruce's level than what I think. Anyways, we really appreciate that review.
Yeah, really great. Really great. Thanks, Fake Loney. That's awesome.
But do give us a favor, man. If you can't support us on HMP, share the show with your friends, review us on iTunes, all of that kind of good stuff. And thank you guys so much. Let's get into it, boys.
Hold on a second. We have one more bit of housekeeping.
Okay, I think I know where this is going.
There was
I
a
think
bet.
that you do. There was, because yes, there was a bet. There was a bet that was made that you were going to watch more episodes of Nightmare.
Yes.
And the date that we had agreed upon was March 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And due to me giving you grace, I let it go until this Sunday when we are recording. Mm-hmm. You had agreed to watch 5 new episodes of Nightmare.
That's correct.
And it is now March 20th. I don't have a calendar in front of me. So how many episodes have you seen?
Well, you guys were right in that people should not have emailed me and told me to actually watch this. We did have someone actually do that. Jessica, who is a new Patreon supporter and everything, she had the biggest of hearts and sent an email that a couple of days ahead of time too. It wasn't even like she did it on the day of, as you suggested.
Jessica, what a friend.
She's top notch over there. Needless to say, the answer, I couldn't bring myself to do it. It was so.
What a hard way to say no.
I've got to build it up. What are you talking about? Come on.
You're saying, like, instead of building up excuses, you're giving even more reason why your answer should have been yes.
Yeah, listen, I'm not telling you I'm a good person. I'm not telling you that I'm a man of my word or that I follow up on things. In fact, I'm telling you quite the opposite of that. I would say I'd take my punishment, but I guess that punishment would be watching Nightman. That would have been the punishment to begin with. So technically, I guess I got out of punishment.
No, I've got it. I figured it out. In the meantime.
All right.
We should watch the movie Doll Man.
I'm down.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, I don't know that Doll Man rings a bell
It's
for me.
It's Full Moon
Oh, Lordy.
Productions. It was made in the early 90s. It is about a man who is the size of a doll, and he fights crime.
Is it based on the Golden Age comic Doll Man?
I don't remember.
Well, it will be that week because that's the only connection I'll have.
Okay, then.
All right.
But I bet you it is because it sounds a lot like the Golden Age comic that is now, I think, in public domain, Doll Man.
From 1981. All right.
No, that doesn't sound
Or 1991, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Okay, that sounds right.
That's what I meant to say. All right. Doll Man it is. Yes, listen. Who's surprised at this point, you know?
I want to go back to how this all
consistent.
started. This all started because I warned the listeners. I said, you are good people. He is lying to you. He's lying straight to your face. He's never going to watch another single minute of the show. And then you hemmed and hawed and said, yes, you would. And then a month later, I asked if you had seen anything, and you said no. And now here we are.
And I'm starting to feel like we're unnecessarily padding the length of a podcast that may be longer than it needs to be.
What are you talking about? We got All right, let's get into it. Here is the trailer for this Snyder Cut.
So begins the end for Darkseid.
I've never seen a being this strong. Maybe one. He's back.
I spent a lot of time trying to divide us. I made a promise to him on his grave. I need to bring us together. There are enemies coming from far away.
They serve an old power.
This world is divided. No protectors here. No lanterns. No Kryptonium. It will fall in his name. I have turned worlds to dust. All of existence shall be mine.
I have a second chance. I am not gonna waste it.
He said the age of heroes would never come again.
Fighting the devil and his army. You know, I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us united. It's time to stand. Fight. The time is now.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League. It is currently out on HBO Max. Here's the IMDb plotline. Zack Snyder's definitive director's cut of Justice League, determined to ensure Superman's ultimate sacrifice was not in vain, Bruce Wayne aligns forces with Diana Prince with plans to recruit a team of metahumans to protect the world from an approaching threat of catastrophic proportions. Well, you know what time it is.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
You know what's been wrong with my comic book connection, Sean?
Nothing.
They've been getting to the point too quickly. Okay, around 1969, Marvel came under either new ownership or new leadership. I'm not entirely sure which. And as part of that transition, Stan Lee was given incredible perks to ensure he would stick around for a while. Jack Kirby asked for similar treatment and was offered so little that it may have actually been less than before he asked instead of more. And it looks to me through my modern bitter lens like Marvel thought, we can't have everybody expecting a Stan Lee deal, so we're going to make an example of Kirby because if we'll crap on Kirby, everyone else will be too scared to ask. I don't have any sources or citations for that. It's just pure speculation on my part, but I could see that being the stand. So Kirby exercised the only power you really ever have as an employee, and he walked. He thought going to DC would be better, but I'm not sure it was as good as he hoped, but you'd have to ask him about that, but you can't because, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. I am guessing he felt like he did a lot of the work Stan was credited with because I'm pretty sure that's what he said in some interviews. So at DC, he asked for and was given the credit for writer, artist, and editor on the comics he created. He eventually transitioned artist to penciler because I'm guessing here, but he probably didn't want to do the same thing to his inkers and colorists as what he perceived Stan Lee had done to him. The major storyline he opened with DC has been retroactively named the Fourth World Saga. When the term Fourth World was initially coined by Kirby, he admitted he just thought it sounded good and didn't really have a good reason behind it. Then later defined what made it the fourth. The first world was one which the Norse gods evolved, like a proto-Asgard. Once the Norse gods recognized their godhood, their world became God World, which is the second world, which is basically Asgard. Gods are kind of pointless without worshipers, so Earth came into existence. This is the third world. When a bitter civil war destroyed God world, aka Ragnarok, the old gods and the second world were destroyed. What emerged from the wreckage of that event became known as the new gods in the fourth world. Does that sound reasonable?
Sure.
I'm still kicking myself for not including that explanation in my fourth world video because it's pretty clear. The fourth world consists of 2 planets made from the remnants of the singular God world. One is New Genesis and the other Apocalypse. I'll let you figure out which one was the bad guys on your own, but the new gods were divided in a way similar to the Force users in Star Wars, with a light side and a dark side. You see what I did there, Adam?
I
don't think Sean's around anymore, but Dark Side is the leader. Oh, okay. Dark Side is the leader of Apocalypse, and he seeks to control the universe through a mechanism that takes away free will. This mechanism is called the anti-life equation. This equation was on Earth. It was actually contained within a sumo wrestler named Sammy the Sumo, but that's a story for another day. But this brings the conflict to Earth, which brings Dark Side and his parademons and his generals in conflict with, among other people, the Justice League. So just for perspective, I see this as a fourth world movie rather than a Justice League movie, and I will judge it as such. Also, I have an affection for the fourth world, maybe second only to Watchmen, and I love the really, really long cut of Watchmen, and other people hated that, but I don't remember who directed that right now, but I just want to go ahead and lay my biases bare to our listeners. So let's get into it.
All right. So, Adam, I'm going to guess that your favorite part of this is the 1-3-3 format is really what you really enjoy about watching this.
Oh, it made my day. I was like, when I booted it up Thursday morning, my first, honest to God, I didn't watch any of the trailers. I didn't want to know anything, right? And so when that pops up at the front of the HBO just going, this is presented in its original 4:3 aspect ratio as to whatever Zack Snyder's vision, I about plotzed. I'm telling you, I took a picture of it. I put it on Instagram and I said, is this a joke? Is this we are kidding? Are we kidding around here? This is the most insane thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It drove me bananas, and they did it for 4 hours. Oh, boy.
It wasn't just the picture that was good. It was the picture where you put the Ben-Hur chariot race above and the 4-3 below, about how far we've come since then.
It's the most anti-movie thing I've seen in a long time, and I suppose in that perspective, I have to applaud him to just go, you know what? I'm going to make the biggest epic ever, and I'm going to make it in 4:3. Wow!
So now's the time. Let's just go ahead and have this discussion. What's the real reason it was in 4:3?
Okay, I've got Sean. Do you have any ideas? Because I've got.
I have a wild guess.
I'm guessing here, but I'm going to imagine because when they brought back the footage that he had, they have to do less to it if it's in 1-3-3.
Bruce, any thoughts?
I think that's kind of what I'm thinking. This is very much a green screen movie. You know,
What?
And honestly, you've got the HBO Max budget, which is bigger than I would have thought, but still, it's not the kind of budget a 4-hour epic like this would have. So I'm thinking, honestly, just from practical terms, you take away 33% of the screen, that cuts your digital After Effects green screen budget by about 30%.
Incorrect. If anything, what that does is makes it more in an odd, weird sense. So let me kind of go into it. So this movie was shot like a lot of movies are, especially in the day of digital now, in kind of this full frame aspect ratio, and then matted appropriately, either in 1.85 to 1, 2.35 to 1, whatever, afterwards. So they have as much leniency in post as they want to. Even greats like David Fincher are doing this. So it's like, hey, I want to make sure that whatever I've got the ability to move and shape and make this thing exactly the way that I want it. Because maybe we had too little or too much headroom. We can move that frame around a little bit and give yourself more of an out if and you need that.
That's kind of what I was getting at, I guess, in a round, because I have recently been making some green screen videos, and I find you have a lot of room to work with if your actual, I guess, with the actual footage that you need to use is smaller than the space you need to occupy. You can always make it bigger. But I don't know why they have to black bar the edges like that, because there are other ways to do it there.
The reason that I feel that this was done is, frankly, Zack Snyder ego. there's a lot of things throughout this entire last couple of years where he's been talking about what he would like to do with this Snyder Cut, and we saw elements of it in this final cut that we've got here. But they talked about everything from making it like a 4-part miniseries to having it in black and white. And I'm fairly certain over there at Warner Brothers and HBO, they were just like, bro, we ain't making this in black and white. And he's just like, well, I'll tell you what, 4:3. Put it in that 4:3 aspect ratio, which is kind of what, if you go to like the real honest to God proper IMAXs, that is more of what their actual aspect ratio is, which would have been fine if we were all watching this in a full-fledged honest to God IMAX, if everyone was doing that. But that's not the case. Everyone is sitting at home watching this on a television. A widescreen television, I might add. So chopping off the left and right, which they didn't really do. Again, they open matted this is what this has ended up being called. So there's way more headroom in this than there needs to be most of the time. It's a very odd and strange decision. I think it's very much the opposite of what, giant cinematic work is doing.
Even an IMAX screen would be square, so it'd be more like a 4:4.
Yeah, it's close enough, but I saw there's a couple of scenes online that people have done the little A/B comparison back and forth. One of the easy ones to find is when Batman meets Flash for the first time, and while the framing is obviously different and everything, the scene in the Snyder Cut is almost twice as long, but also they cut out a lot of stuff in the framing. You can watch all the framing and just go like, oh, you have the other one. Say what you will about the content of what's in there as far as the edit goes, but as far as framing, boy, that widescreen looks a heck of a lot better. That's me. Maybe I'm just a nutball, but
Well, no, I think you're right that widescreen would look better. I still think there's a technical aspect I don't understand that they didn't. That it wasn't as much an artistic choice as they want you to think it is.
No, because here's the thing. See, what you're thinking of is that they're chopping off the halves of the left and right. I'm saying that what you saw is the edge of the screen, but they mat on top and bottom. So technically, they would have more work to do by having this open frame as opposed to less.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because what I'm saying would only work if all the shots were tighter.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I see what you're saying now, because what you're not generating on the right and left, now you're generating on the top.
You're generating up and down, and you're seeing things that you normally wouldn't see. So let's say that a boom mic probably wasn't, because they got a lot of great stuff.
He's invested heavily in boom mics that work from the side instead of over there.
It's really bizarre, but I don't know.
So let's before we go off of a ledge here, I think the best way to what is your favorite part about this cut is probably the best question to ask you guys.
That's a good way to start.
Yeah.
Adam, I'm sure you have the most to say about your favorite part. So go ahead.
For me, it comes down to Superman. Of all these characters, I feel like I'm the most invested in Superman. It is the most iconic character that we have. We've been with this actor as this character the longest compared to the other characters in this film. The score, the Superman theme and everything is fantastic. And, the points where you hear Jor-El in the background talking about him, and then, the Kent, little soliloquy there and everything, with those in the background, and just the swelling Superman score and everything. I really like Henry Cavill a whole bunch. I think he makes a great Superman. I just don't know. It's unfortunate that we haven't had really good Superman movies for him to be in, because I really like him a lot.
I like the black suit too. I know that's going to be a polarizing thing, but I thought it looked pretty cool.
I don't know that I like the black cape. I don't know that you even need that cape. You know what I mean?
Oh, some would say you never need a cape. It's purely a style choice.
but the black cape on top of the black outfit and everything.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
I'm just trying to think of a situation I've been in that would have been better if I'd had a cape. There aren't that many.
Yeah, but you can, if you have a cape, you can walk out of the room very dramatically.
Yes, and I will agree. You want a complementary color on the cape. You want it to give your outfit some pop. You don't want to wear a cape that nobody notices. If you got a cape, you want people to see that cape.
Yeah, because if in the regular,
look at this dang cape.
If in the regular blue outfit and everything, he had a blue cape, it'd look weird and off center. It doesn't pop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you had that right.
I'm with you there. To be honest, the cape was so. I guess I didn't even think about the cape. I was kind of looking at the chest, and
Right,
the suit
because
and
it's
stuff.
muted. It's not. It doesn't pop out. So ergo, it doesn't need to be there.
In fact, when you said you didn't like the black cape, I thought, oh, he had a black cape.
Yep. Exactly.
So maybe I didn't like the black suit as much as I said if I didn't notice the cape. I have to eat my words there. My absolute favorite thing is Darkseid. I got like thrills when I saw Darkseid. I thought he looked great. I'm glad he was included. I felt like that was a huge thing that was missing from the Justice League. If you're going to tell a fourth world story, you need at least a little bit of Darkseid. And I thought Darkseid was handled beautifully here. I mean, I fanboy here. I'm not claiming to judge this objectively at all, but I've never seen Darkseid in live action. I had seen a leaked photo from the movie of Darkseid when he didn't have his shirt on that I did not like, so I was ready for disappointment, but I was so not disappointed. Far and away, my favorite stuff is all around Darkseid.
He looked really good, and like the upgraded CGI on Steppenwolf really looked great. A far improvement from what we saw in the last iteration of this.
Agree to disagree.
Really? You think that face alone? Oh my gosh, that face in the first movie.
Here's the issue. We might want different things in our Steppenwolf.
Okay.
I kind of wouldn't have minded a more human looking Steppenwolf that's truer to the comics, and they made him less human looking. It's sort of like, they took a design that I thought was terrible in the first place, and they just made it flashier, which doesn't make something terrible better, in my opinion. And that's, like I said, that's just me, because I wouldn't mind. I like the concept that Darkseid looks very different from the rest of the new gods. Like he's even different from the other Apocalyptans, but here they kind of made Desaad and Steppenwolf look like they're all the same sort of species as Darkseid. But Darkseid looks the way he does because he has stone skin from the Omega Force.
And Steppenwolf looks very. They say what you will. They took a page out of Thanos for that, for sure. It's very, very reminiscent.
But I liked Martian Manhunter. What'd you think about that, Adam?
Oh boy, did I not care for that. I like the actor who plays him. I think he's fantastic. Like that's another one of those journeyman actors who's in a gajillion things, and he's good. He's always good in those roles. But I thought the Manhunter design was trash.
So does that mean that character, because that character's even in Man of Steel, isn't he? So
I think so.
So Martian Manhunter's been around in the DC universe since.
Or has he? I mean, maybe he just decided to look like that guy that was in Man of Steel.
I see.
That's the thing with Martian Manhunter, as we see in this movie. But I really, really like the idea that Martian Manhunter was like that hand of fate behind the scenes, given just a little nudge to save the world. Or I like those incarnations of Martian Manhunter when he's not out there on the field punching people, but he is like the both the heart and the brains of the Justice League.
Or
and
conversely,
he's
he just stood on the side and let all of these awful things happen, and then shows up in the last 5 minutes to go, "What's up, guys? You know me. I'm around and stuff. I could have done some things, but I decided not to because reasons."
Yeah,
we did it. Good job. We did a great job, everybody.
Who are you again?
super magnificent spoiler warning, because we may get some first-time listeners here that don't know that we don't really hold back on spoilers. So I want to give super terrific spoiler warning, then talk a little bit more about Martian Manhunter.
All right.
Do you think that's enough super terrific spoiler warning?
They've had time.
When Martha Kent is in there talking to Lois Lane, and then she comes out and turns into Martian Manhunter, that made that whole scene make sense, because before I never understood exactly what would motivate Martha Kent to go get Lois Lane, to think it was a good idea for this horribly grieving young woman to go out and get involved in something that's way over her head. But it makes more sense when it's Martian Manhunter doing it, given that little nudge behind the scenes, like I said, like that guiding hand of fate. I thought that was a really, really good narrative twist.
It certainly made more sense then, because you're right. Martha doing that, it did seem like, well, why is this what you're doing?
I know I've just been evicted from my home and I'm in horrible grief, borderline depression here, but I thought I'd just pop in Metropolis and tell you to go out and risk your life.
You're not
today.
doing enough reporting, Lois. What's going on? I want to see you on the news when I'm sitting in a Motel 6 and because they took my farm.
What are the chances? Well, I guess, what are the chances that the day Martha would decide to go talk to Lois would be the exact same day that the Justice League were trying to bring Superman back to life. So it makes more sense that Martian Manhunter may have been spying on them and knew what they were up to.
Quick little thing, just because we're in that neighborhood, and I don't know that there's too much more to say. I'm a big fan of Amy Adams, and why did she looks terrible in this movie. I know she's grieving widow and everything, but y'all could have, like, that's a very attractive lady. Why they made her look so bad in this movie? And I felt
they
bad
did the
for
same
her.
thing. That whole scene is so poorly lit because both Diane Lane and Amy Adams look awful in that scene.
It's just like, oh man, I
I
felt
just
so
thought-
bad.
I thought Amy Adams was just already in character for Hillbilly Elegy, and that's why she looked that way.
Like, she looked better in that movie than she did in this movie.
Yeah, you're probably. I don't know, man. I'm not going to rag on her. I thought she looked fine.
No, look, that's my point.
She looked
she is
tired,
fine, but she looks terrible in this movie.
Yeah, she looked tired. I'm not going to hammer on her appearance.
My favorite parts of this version of this movie is, one, they do a whole lot better job of explaining what's of the future scenario. Like, I absolutely understand what's happening now, whereas I didn't previously in the movie edit, the Joss Whedon edit of this. I couldn't understand what was happening. Like, so everyone's dreaming this. What? Like, I didn't understand that part at all.
Yeah.
And now I get it. And the second part, the part that drove me absolutely nuts about the theatrical version, is that Russian family, that we spend so much time on that family and it literally goes nowhere. Nothing happens. And to have that completely removed, it adds to this very, very long movie.
And I also saw, now I guess I'm changing gears from what I liked here to like what I think about this compared to the first one.
Before you do, I want to throw in a couple more things that I like.
Let's hear it, because I've got a lot more I like, but I figure I'll bring them up as defense later on if I need to.
I just want people to know that, like, there are things about this movie that I do like. I thought the extended, while I'm not super crazy about how all of it transpired, and I don't think it needed to be nearly as long as it was, I felt that Cyborg did get a much better cut in this movie. We get to know a lot more about this character, a little bit more about his state of mind and everything. It felt like it was much more complete than we saw in the original cut, to where I give nothing but full credit to that. I'm still not crazy about the performance or anything, but for what they added, I liked well enough, in as much as it did give more context to that character. So I did enjoy that.
And I'd say this, for me, the same thing goes for Flash. Flash makes a little more sense on the team in this movie than he did in the theatrical cut, at least for me. And not everybody likes it. And I know Ezra Miller has some unflattering hidden camera videos out there slapping people. But I got to say, I really like Ezra Miller's performance as this neurodiverse version of Flash that we've never really seen before. And I enjoyed that there was more of it, and we got to spend a little more time with him. And he got that extra sort of Flashpoint-esque heroic moment at the end. I like everything you're saying about Cyborg. I agree with, but I'm also saying that about Flash.
The only go ahead.
I think one of the things, because I'm not a huge fan of Cyborg in the first place. He wasn't part of my version of the Justice League growing up. I get that he's there. I get that he's pretty much the entry point for you, like watching the movie of this is how the Justice League is. I don't understand why it wasn't more like a wide-eyed, let's look at what the Justice League is through this character, and kind of remove how close you are to Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman. That seems like a better idea, but that's a totally different movie. I understand that. I think that I feel like I totally undersold Ben Affleck as Batman. I was very surprised this go round how much I like him as Batman, because he really is sort of like the key element to this movie. When it comes to bringing everyone together, when it comes to basically being the glue of the Justice League, and he performs that admirably, even though I am quite sure it's the last thing he wanted to do was be on the set. So So, to have the performance that we got out of him for this movie, I really enjoyed Affleck as Batman.
And I'm glad to hear that, because I've always been fond of the Affleck Batman.
I've always been fond of just Affleck in general. I really like the guy. I've enjoyed his work for many, many years at this point. And when he was announced as being Batman, I was super thrilled with it. I'm like, he's just the perfect build for that. I think he could really do a super swell job with it. He did, and I think Sean's right. This makes his role as Batman in this movie much more consequential and makes him much more relatable, and you like him a whole lot more. And so they did a really good job with that. And we'll talk about it, sure, at some point, but it's sad we probably will never see any more of that anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, with you on that.
I also think that of all of the Justice League in this version of it, Gal Gadot gets kind of the short sheet on this.
I think that her and Aquaman, I think they're on the same footing there, where at least in comparison to the theatrical cut, they seem to be less significant, but I don't know if it's just because the other people around them are raised a little bit compared to the theatrical cut, and they're kind of flat, that they haven't really fallen. They just haven't risen with the tide. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm with you there. But I thought that more with Aquaman, but yeah, same sentiment.
Well, I could get even 50% less Aquaman, and I would appreciate that more.
Yeah,
I hate this characterization of Aquaman.
Yeah, and in the theatrical cut, he was my favorite part of that movie. So that's just sort of like a little perspective from where I'm coming from.
Well, Let me just take this shirt off and I'll tell you all about it.
Gonna pop my shirt off.
I mean, he does it no less than 2 times, at least in this movie, probably more. I only counted 2, but I'm like, really? Again with this? It's just like, I'm not taking my pants off to go in the sea, but boy, oh boy, is the shirt coming off.
My shirt's chafing me.
Hey, man.
Well, look, man, when you got that dude, if that dude isn't walking around with his shirt off, then why are you paying that?
Yeah, no kid. He's like, look, I've been so hungry for the past 3 months while I've been trying to get into super shape for this movie. I have to show off it. Come on, man. Just give me a break. But yeah, he's Aquaman's fine, but I think you're right. I think having a solo Aquaman movie, and at this point 2 Wonder Woman movies, I think they kind of sat back and go like, well, we know a lot about these characters. Maybe we don't need to spend as much time with them. Let's try to develop some of the characters that haven't had their own single movies spin, I guess. That's my only guess on that.
And some of that, it's like, I have to remind myself this was released in the chronological order that it was released in, not in the chronological order that Justice League was released in. So we have had solo Aquaman and Wonder Woman movies. We still haven't had Flash or Cyborg. So it makes sense in a broader lens, but I keep thinking this is 2017 when I'm watching it.
I kept waiting for Boba Fett to show up, and I totally forgot that he's only in Aquaman. He's not in this.
Yeah, well, at least he gives the line of like, "Hey, I gotta go find my dad," and goes off there. So it at least gives you a little bit of context as to the time that things are taking place. So that's a good thing.
I mean, they really wasn't enough time in this movie to put him in, so I can understand.
I the best way I can describe this movie is the way that Batman Begins was described to me, because at the time you could, I might be remembering this wrong, but Batman Begins and Iron Man came out at the same time, right? Iron Man 1?
Pretty close.
Same summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, close enough.
And I remember that I had seen Iron Man, but I had not seen Batman Begins yet, but my friend had, who is he's a film buff. And so I asked him, hey, what is better? Iron Man or Batman Begins? And he had just seen Batman Begins. And he said, dark and brooding doesn't mean better. And so watching this version of Justice League, that's all that was going through my head, is that it's like, I get it. You want to ratchet up all of the dark and brooding stuff because that is who you are as a filmmaker, Zack Snyder. I get it. But you have no less than 2 characters, and there's far more than that, but let's just say 2 characters right now that are supposed to exude joy in the best of us and the best of humanity, and you are doing none of that with these characters. With that being said, this is the best Zack Snyder Justice League, in my opinion, that we're going to get. There's no other, like if he was given, let's say he's given another crack, it'll never happen. But let's say that, hey, I'm going to make a Justice League Part 2 is going to happen. That isn't going to be nearly as good as this version that we just got of this movie. And so it's the way that I feel about Justice League now is the same way that I felt about Watchmen so many years ago, where it was like, you know what? I'm not a huge fan of this movie, but that is the best version of this we're ever going to get. And then, the TV show came out and it's vastly superior. But anyway, I think that no matter what incarnation the Justice League takes, it won't be Zack Snyder. We definitely know it won't be Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
But this is the best version of this movie we're going to get. And that's the way that I look at it ultimately. This is not my movie. I don't hate this movie. I don't love this movie. It's just a movie to me.
Do you think if Zack Snyder had never had the very, very unfortunate family tragedy and he had been allowed to make this movie the way he wanted in 2017, he would have made this movie?
No. There's no way. I mean, like, just the people, and God bless you, you got the biggest of hearts in all of the right places, but as much as we say this is, the Snyder Cut, it's the Snyder redo. It's the Snyder mulligan. We're doing this again.
I like its official title, Zack Snyder's Justice League, because that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if you want to be pedantic, he probably did have final cut on this version of the Justice League.
But you'd be wrong in that as well.
Okay,
because
I can imagine there was another person who said 4 hours is the ideal length for
not enough. They said.
Well, what they wanted to do, and I know that he was hamstrung on this one. They wanted to put Jon Stewart somewhere in this movie, but they said no go on
from
that.
The Daily Show.
Yes, Jon Stewart from the Daily Show would show up, talking about the destruction that Superman did on Metropolis.
If there's one thing I love in my Green Lantern, it's having him be a little Jewish man.
But an excellent soccer player.
But yeah, so like it was, he didn't have final cut, but it certainly was. They allowed him to do what he wanted to do. They gave him another report, $40 to $60 million to do it. The movie is twice as long as the original one was, and there's a lot of new stuff here and a lot of different edits and things as well. So some of those good, some of those. Who's to say?
I want to back up on that budget talk. What do you think, just ballpark? I'm sure at some point we had an exact number. What do you think the budget is for the first 2 hours that was theatrically released?
$350 million is my guess.
Okay. So if you're doubling the length with 1/5 of the budget, 1/6 of the budget, that makes me think the stuff you're filling it up with can't be as good.
Well,
quality-wise.
No, it certainly can't. I mean, there's no way to necessarily do that. Yeah, budget for original Justice League at $300 million.
Okay, so 1/5. So he had 1/5 of the budget to double the length of the movie. That kind of doesn't help me give the benefit of the doubt to the filmmakers here, I guess. Not that money's everything, but, they could have added an extra really awesome 35, 40 minutes. He could have taken out the stuff that Whedon put in that didn't need to be there. I mean, I'm just saying this could have been tighter, man.
Yes.
And if you're ready, if you're ready for some of the negativity, and I don't have a ton of it, but man, it all goes back to the length for me and I've also got some Whedon negativity that's going to spill into when I'm pointing out what I didn't like.
Well, that is one of the things that, and we should just start getting into the negative because there's a lot more of that. But I think that that's one of the things that Whedon did add to his version of this movie is that there's a lot more real world elements in his version of this than what we just got. Well, there's a lot, meaning that there's a lot more real backgrounds than we get in this version, because I can remember I was watching this for about 20 minutes and thinking to myself, I don't think I've seen an actual person or an actual anything in about 20 minutes.
some of the Whedon stuff that he added. How about I'm a little negative on the theatrical cut stuff I couldn't appreciate. Like you could guess, and sometimes you knew, like you see CGI mustache, you knew that was something Whedon added.
Sure.
But
the opening Batman on the rooftops and stuff in the first one, the second that I saw that, I was just like, that's not Zack Snyder's eye. I could just tell by looking at it. I'm like, that's Joss Whedon, and come to find out it was. And they took it out entirely, and it's a good thing that they did because it was not good.
But there's a few other things that I'm not clever enough to have discovered, but I've seen other people point out and do side by side of the same scene. But there's a scene, I'm just giving a broad example here. It's not a specific example, just to give you the idea of the kind of changes. A scene where somebody said, wow, that was a blue 1979 Volkswagen. And Whedon reshot it to say, wow, that was a blue 1980 Volkswagen. Like some of it was almost just like Whedon needed to get a certain percentage of his scenes when it didn't really change the narrative. And there's some stuff now that in retrospect, you can kind of look back and think that was just running up the budget for no good reason. I guess Whedon was paid by the hour, so he wanted to get more time in. I don't know.
So let me dispel a little bit of stuff here because I think it's not said enough. I'll leave a link to my YouTube thing that I did about 9 months ago talking about the Snyder Cut and how that got birthed. But the original cut of Justice League was, pretty darn close to what you've got there. That was very close to what Zack Snyder wanted to do. Then he needed to add some more scenes, and under, the orders from Zack Snyder, Joss Whedon went off and did what he had to do to fill out those spots because Zack Snyder needed to leave. Zack Snyder was not fired off of this movie. They did not
he had a family tragedy.
Yeah, but so many people are like, they fired him. They said, you can't do this. There's so many people that think DC purposely hamstrung Snyder and like gave everything to Whedon and let Whedon cut the entire movie. And it's just not true. It's just not a thing that actually happened. Joss Whedon came in and filled in bits. You know why you don't see Joss Whedon's name as director of that movie? Because he didn't direct it. And he also didn't direct the majority of things or edit the majority of things in that movie. That movie was majorly the things that Zack Snyder wanted to do. It just was. And this is him coming in afterwards and saying, hey, now that I really have the time and the ability and, clearly the headspace to do it, now I'm going to be able to get this, not only what I initially wanted to do, but maybe in that George Lucas perfect world of I can do exactly what I want to do the way I want to do it the second time around. I'm able to do it now. And good for him for getting to do that.
I'm not claiming to know anything for fact, but I could totally understand if he did not want to be involved in the post-production after dealing with the death in the family.
Exactly. He didn't get down to the final thing, but the assembly cut, everything that they were pretty much doing was mostly there. It just was.
The other part, there's a massive problem with this movie for me. And the problem is this, is that there is a version of the Justice League that would be perfect for Zack Snyder. And that is the future, like doomsday, everything's on fire when you're looking at that version of the future. That is a Zack Snyder movie. I would totally love to see that version of the Justice League where you got Deathstroke walking around with the Joker, with Batman. Like that stuff is great.
Oh, that'd be right up his alley.
And that's the movie he should have made. He should not have made the movie where it's 6 superheroes, but actually 7 superheroes, but actually 6 superheroes. And they're, and it's Batman and it's Wonder Woman and it's Superman, because he doesn't know how to deal with Superman and Wonder Woman. He just doesn't.
And I think a reason maybe that the Justice League could be tough for him, at least to make a movie that I am 100% spot on with, is that it's a very decent, like everybody is going to have their own favorite Justice League stories. I don't know that there is like 2 or 3 standouts that you say, if you're going to make a movie, these are the ones you make. The team was formed in the Silver Age when all the stories were pretty silly by modern cinema standards. The more modern stories, the ones that are really good, don't necessarily have the marquee members of the team. If he had a good, solid, long story arc that was on par with the length of Watchmen, and he did like he did with Watchmen, where he makes a largely faithful, put his mark on it where he needs to, but he had a largely had the central plot laid out for him, I think he could make a great Justice League. But trying to create his own, it's tough for anybody, not just for him.
Well, I think that exists. and maybe you disagree with me here, Bruce, but I think that first run of Grant Morrison JLA, that is a great Justice League story.
But who's the lineup in that story? I guess he could change it up a little bit.
It's basically it's your big three. They're all in it. And the only one they couldn't get was Hawkman, so they have Ariel.
Yeah, that's easily transferred to another character, though.
Right. Yeah. And so, like, I think that would be a terrific, because it's when they're fighting against the White Martians, and like that's just a really fun, like, because it's also a mystery. Like what the hell is happening here? We can't figure this out, and it turns out that it's the other Martians, and so that's super fun.
And I think he clearly wanted to include Darkseid, and there's not a thing in the world wrong with that. I think he could have taken something in a similar vein to like the Forever People's original 11-issue run and just substituted the Justice League largely for the Forever People. You have to change a few elements, but I think you tell a more modern lensed Fourth World story from the early days, and it really works. I mean, the core is there. The anti-life equation is on Earth. But that Bruce, brings Darkseid to Earth, and then there you've got your battle set up.
But Bruce, you have two totally different sensibilities here, because if you're making a Fourth World movie, like kind of what you're suggesting here, Zack Snyder is the exact wrong person to be making that movie. That there is a director who can do that. His name is Taika Waititi, and he's already proven that he can take Jack Kirby's stuff and make just a really banging movie. And so having Zack Snyder and having Jack Kirby, these two things don't really intermingle. And it makes for a bad viewing experience, because all Zack Snyder wants to do is make 14-year-old boys go awesome, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But that isn't what Jack Kirby does.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to argue on that.
And I just want to put it out there because, Bruce mentioned, the Watchmen cut and everything. I love Zack Snyder's Ultimate Watchmen cut, the super long one that puts in all the Black Freighter stuff and all that. I love it. I think that's really great, and I think it's next to his remake of Dawn of the Dead. I think it's probably the best thing that Snyder's done.
Did you guys? I want to go back to this movie here just for a second. It's divided into parts. Were there 7 parts, 6 parts? I lost count of the parts.
No, yeah, it's up. It's at least 6, I think.
I couldn't tell you.
Was there anything that either of you recall in part 1 that you would have missed if it just like started where part 2 starts?
Oh, I mean, here's the thing. There's so much of this. I can't even remember where most of the stuff is because it is so long. It's unwieldy. It's not like that these particular parts kind of cordon off characters or anything to tell that little arc, and then we go on to another little arc with another character. That doesn't happen.
There is one bit, Bruce. There's one very important bit that happens in the first chapter, which is the Superman yell that informs the mother boxes that Superman is dead.
Okay, so you leave that yell in. Let's just say the movie opens with just that yell, and you go to part 2 then. But if I rewatch I will rewatch this movie. I'm going to give myself some time for the palate to cleanse. I'm going to go in and start at part 2. And I'm going to, people have their watching order for stuff. We talk about that all the time. I'm going to come up with a watching order for just one movie. I'm going to tell people which order to watch, which part in, which part to skip. And I think I'm going to come up with bare minimum. I'll shave 30 minutes off for you and make it more enjoyable. But I think I can get it down to a sub 3 hour sequence that makes this a super fun movie. Well, it takes the knowledge that you already know some things because you've seen the theatrical cut. Like there's stuff that if I'm going to watch this for a new experience, I don't need repeated because I've already seen the theatrical cut. And I can say, you know what, you know where it's going, you know what's up. You don't need to know all this, but yeah, you make a point. I guess the Superman scream is worthwhile, but they also make it clear later that Steppenwolf didn't show up till the Kryptonian was gone. So even if you didn't see that scream, you still get that bit of the plot.
It's true. Also, there is a Doll Man sequel, so we need to do that. We could do that.
Yeah.
Doll Man versus the Puppet Master.
Oh, I was hoping to be Evil Bong.
I want to talk a second about the score. The score for this movie, I've heard people praising it left and right. I don't know what score they're listening to because this one was trash.
Who doesn't like Junkie XL?
I love the Junkie XL, and that's the only reason I think I got to like Wonder Woman so much in the beginning was that Junkie XL.
Well, it's Tom Hulkenberg. I don't know if he's actually Junkie XL or not, but because I don't know.
Is
that him?
The same guy.
Okay. They're the overbearing, constant, just, let me see if I've got it queued up well enough. Just kind of like, all the voices and stuff that you hear, just the constant, all of that. It's too much. It's so over the top. It's so over dramatic. I can't stand it. And there's no variety to it at all. The only bright moments are cues from other films.
See, that's the secret. Your score is cheaper when you only have to pay for like 8 minutes of music and it all sounds the same and you keep using it.
The soundtrack as it appears on iTunes is 3 hours and 54 minutes. So it's clearly every single moment throughout this entire thing.
Song.
It is all there. And most of it is just this wild and crazy wailing. And it's just... you combine that with these Zack Snyder ungodly amount of slow-mo that we've got in this movie. Some of it cool, some of the Flash stuff is kind of neat, and I'll go back to Flash in just a second. But there's so much just dragging it out, and you're like, bro, it's already long enough. We don't need to make everything that doesn't need to be slow.
I will agree that there's stuff that doesn't need to be slow that's slow, but I'm not going to say that it's necessarily slow-mo because I like Snyder's battle scene aesthetic, and some of the slow-mo is integral. Like, who wants to buy a ticket to a Snyder movie if it doesn't feel like Snyder? Like, he, for good or bad, he established a brand in 300 and now either has to stick with it or use a pseudonym. But so I'm not going to complain about that. What I will complain about is the slowness that's like, okay, Superman and Lois are in a cornfield. They're feeling emotional looking at his old house, and he's dealing
Shirtless.
with things because he's just come back from the dead. Okay, I look at that. I know everything that scene needs to tell me in about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I think I took a bathroom break and made a microwave burrito and came back and they were still in that cornfield. I do not like cornfields, man. I was abused by a cornfield when I was a child or something. I hate that cornfield
kill my
scene.
mama.
Yes, I hate cornfield scene.
It's it's a bit much. In him coming back and being like evil Superman, and all he's got to do is look at Lois. That it's just so corny and over.
But that works. I don't have a problem with corny. I don't have a problem with corny if you get your corn out there and get the story going. I have a problem if it's corny, but you give it the time and build up as if you think it's deep.
You take a 15-minute sojourn to Smallville to do God only knows what.
Yeah, and that bothers me. Now, something else that I'm going to say is a negative. I really like that we got to spend more time with Cyborg. I like that we explored his motivations more. He really, really, really tried hard to do something with that relationship between Cyborg and his father and the fact that it was a
Miles
testing
Dyson.
relationship.
Love Miles Dyson.
Yeah, but when he died, I felt nothing. Like he failed, and I am such a sucker for father-son emotional stories like that. Like that is one of those things that is my biggest soft spot. Will make me cry every time Silas Stone dies, and I'm like, okay, now we can go fight somebody. I mean, he has the plot points for a really emotional sub arc between father and son here, but like he doesn't sell it well at all to me. And you know, I don't think I'm the first person to say it, but I don't think Snyder emotional development of characters is Snyder's strong suit.
No, I would not think so. No, there is something just inherently wrong with when you hire Miles Dyson to be the expert robot guy for your movie that's 25 years later, you know, and then on top of that, you have him with a trigger thing for the mother box where it looks remarkably similar to what he's holding in Terminator 2, where he's going.
Yeah,
I mean, it is the same. It is the same bloody scene, and
in a movie that's going for laughs, like in a Whedon movie, that probably works because you know it's going to be a bunch of illusions and callbacks and laughs and jokes. But in a movie that's attempting to build what Zack Snyder is attempting to build, that is distracting.
And I've got to tell you, like I understand I understand that Cyborg is a beloved character. I get it. I hate this version of Cyborg. I much prefer the Doom Patrol Cyborg.
Yeah.
That is a far better character.
He's
than
charismatic, you know?
Well, also you care. Like, I care about that dude. I don't care at all about this version of Victor Stone. I don't care at all.
But I do love the Zack Snyder-esque football scene. Like I said, I'm not even that big of a football fan, but when I see him running down the field with the Snyder effects and the slow-mo and dodging tackles and stuff, that's a lot of fun. In the snow, that's like one of those things that I kind of feel like only Snyder can do, and I really like it.
It did feel really cool looking. I watched it just going like, because there's something in the back of my mind. I don't know this, but my thought was, has Zack Snyder ever really watched a football game? Let's find out by watching this football sequence. And it looked correct. Things didn't look like, you didn't look at it and go, oh, that's not a thing that happens in football. So I thought that was pretty good. But yes, creatively that looked fantastic.
To me, it looks remarkably similar to the opening scene from The Last Boy Scout.
That's true
Except
as well.
No pistol pulled out of the waist. Man, how weird is it, Sean, that I was going to make a Last Boy Scout reference?
The bit from Cyborg that I didn't quite understand, I know it's supposed to give us heart and make us feel like, he's a good guy deep down inside. But his dad giving him all the powers to do everything, which, first of all, you would become a villain if you were granted that much power. As much as you would try to be a good guy, you would eventually turn evil because you would have way too much power at your disposal. And why wouldn't you just make him a body that works? Why does he have to be able to control the stock market with his mind? I thought that was bizarre.
I think part of it is because Silas didn't really make anything. He just hooked him up to the mother box, and the mother box did what the mother box does.
I guess. But
I don't think Silas did all that on purpose, but he sure as heck studied him after it was done.
But I to me, it felt like when he's going through like the security video and sees the single mother working at the diner or whatever, it felt weird and creepy that he's just tuning in to kind of different feeds and stuff. And then when he goes to the ATM machine, I shouldn't say machine, I'm sorry, that's a bad part on Adam. Shut up, Adam. It's just ATM. You added an extra word in there.
That's okay.
But so she goes to the ATM and there's like $300 in it or something like that. All of a sudden he snaps and she's got over $1 million. I got news for you. That bank is going to go, this doesn't seem right, and she might ends up in more trouble than,
No, here's how it goes to me. It goes to me like, okay, Cyborg his mind process is super fast, so he's going to make it right, which means there are probably 20,000 small transfers going into her, or else he's just ripping off one really rich guy.
Yeah, and that was my thought. Where's this money coming from?
Who? Like I like to see the next scene where it's like, oh wow, I guess we have to close down the county hospital because $1 million disappeared from our
just tell me that you're taking it out of Lex Luthor's account and I'm okay with it. But I'm like, where's this money coming from? You didn't just generate this. You didn't just like go into the computer and just go, you've got extra money. They would see that, and things would not end well for this poor woman who seems to be on the edge as it is.
And it's just super duper shorthand that for a lot of people just let it happen and move on. And that's a scene that also really worked for me, let's say in 1994. Like if Johnny Five goes up and makes an ATM spit out money in 1986, I think that's super cool. But now we've come to the point where I realize computerized banking isn't as easy to hack as it used to be. So it almost makes it look like, okay, great, he has helped one person, but did she really need that much? Like, think of how many other single working mothers. Like, he could have probably given her 20 grand and spread it around a little bit. I'm starting to get cynical about like shortcuts to heroism.
Yeah, it was
that
too
made
much.
him feel good, but it didn't really solve that much of a problem.
This is one of the logistical problems with Batman, is that if you really want to clean up the city, why don't you dump a bunch of money into Arkham?
Some better security for Arkham, say.
It's like when I hear that the children's hospital is not able to afford to put children in the beds, but local millionaire donates a ton of money to the art museum. It's not that the art museum's not important, but sometimes you're like, man, what's going on here? And then you find out, well, he wanted the art museum named after him. He didn't want the children's hospital named after him.
It's a bummer. That children's hospital is a real bummer.
Yeah.
Art's cool though. One of the things that it was so close to being like this nice humanizing moment for Cyborg when they're going and they're digging up Superman's grave and everything, which is hilarious because they actually mention it's like, we're superheroes. Why can't we just lift this thing out with our whatevers, you know? And the guys are like, no, we're doing it the old school way for no real reason. Okay, fine. And Flash just kind of goes like, hey, that Wonder Woman's pretty hot there, right? And it's like, you think she likes younger men? She's 100 years old. Everyone to her
5,000
whatever,
years old.
Whatever it was. Yeah. Everyone to hers is younger. Like, we had a chance for Cyborg to deliver like a nice, funny moment. Like, all he had to do was just smile a touch and give him a little bit of humanity that's just solely lacking for that character. It would have made me like him so much more if he would have had half a chuckle in his face when he delivered that, what I think is the funniest line of the movie.
Yeah, and they took away his booyah. He had a booyah in the theatrical cut.
I didn't remember it from the first one because I did ask that to some people and stuff, months and months ago. I was like, because I can't remember. It was so underwhelming that it just wasn't there. But in the trailer, and in this one, we get a Mama Ann. Ugh, just
yes, beautiful. Best part of both cuts of the movie.
Oh, so bad.
I'm going to say something pretty controversial here. Is that I really like the Joker scene in this.
My son really liked it. I want to hear your take on it.
I think that there is something. That is the movie Zack Snyder. I know I've said this before, but that's the movie Zack Snyder should make.
And it kind of feels like he wants to make it so bad that he's shoehorning it in when it doesn't add to the narrative. But yeah, you're right. I would love an Elseworlds movie like that. And
you have because there's something fun about carrying around. You're basically carrying around the Joker. I don't know what benefits you get by having the Joker on your team, but
wild card.
Why does he always have to be a wild card? I like that he's basically that whole scene where he's basically explaining to Batman, like, you screwed up. Like, this is you did this. Everyone says I'm the crazy one, but you're actually the crazy one. He doesn't say it in those words, but that's basically what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I like that he's toned down. He's a little more Heath Ledger than he was in Suicide Squad, which I very much appreciated. And I like the look of him. Like, he's just, he's wearing like an open dress shirt. There's something like much cooler about that to me, where he's just like, look, I'm barely here, you guys. Everybody knows I'm going to get murdered here in about 10 minutes. So, I like that version of the Joker way more than Suicide Squad Joker.
Okay, if we're doing AB versus Suicide Squad, I did like that version of the Joker better than the Suicide Squad version. For some reason, I didn't like the sheriff's vest with all the badges on it that I assume are the badges of all the cops Joker's killed.
Sure.
Like, something about that was just, 15-year-old kid trying too hard to be edgy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And there is the other parts of this too, which is that no matter what you do to Jared Leto, he's just going to be too pretty. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And the whole little thing there with his conversation with Bruce, and Batman says, and make no mistake, I will effing kill you.
Ugh.
At that point in this dismal world, if you're so certain you are going to kill him, why don't you just do it?
Yeah.
Like, what are you waiting for, Batman? You think there's going to be a better opportunity to kill Joker than this very moment?
Yeah, it's like all of that. I appreciate it for what it is. And I think, Sean, you make correct points here, but ultimately all I could do was just roll my eyes when all of this was going on, because it was just bad.
Make no mistake about it. I'm doing that with I'm going to say 90% of this movie, because everything is just so overly stuffed and overly dark, and everyone talks like this, and everything like wah in the background, Sean, happening. Yeah.
That scene had a mortal sin by Sean and Bruce's rules of movies. We hate dream scenes because they mean nothing.
I do.
And that was a dream scene. But the one upside for me about that is we did get a little Joe Manganiello with a mohawk. I love Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke.
Yeah.
It kills me that we've gotten like a grand total of maybe 90 seconds of Joe Manganiello as Deathstroke, because he would be awesome in that role.
Yep.
Give us some kind of Judas Contract movie or something. I don't care. Get Joe Manganiello on screen as Deathstroke, because he just looks perfect for the like really tough but older guy. I mean, he's a great actor. It's a great role for him. We need that.
And Bruce, you mentioned it in the Joker scene, and there's several other spots in there, but like just the unnecessary like F-bombs and just language that
so
doesn't
stupid.
belong in this film is pretty gross.
Two in particular stuck out to me, and I felt like one, I could give it a pass. The one where Cyborg says "F the world" or something like that.
That's
that
fair
one I could give
enough,
a pass,
I
because
guess,
let's say bitter 20-year-old guy who is not happy with. He feels like he is being treated worse than anyone else in the world at that moment. So I can see him saying that. Now, does it need to be included in the movie? That's not something I want to debate. But the one with Batman, that almost feels like, you know what, guys, we could be the first movie where Batman says the F word, and it'll be in the same sentence where he promises to kill, because those are kind of like two things about Batman. He doesn't say the F word and he doesn't kill. So we're going to do them both.
Yeah.
So stupid.
It's
And
just,
if anybody complains, we can say it was just a dream sequence. It's not canon.
yeah, not canon. You just point to that and just go like, hey, everything's A-okay. It was just, I don't understand why that needed to be there. Most of this stuff, and do you guys think for 1 second the way this thing was shot that Affleck and Leto were on the set at the same time? Because
No way.
It is not shot that way at all.
No.
Never
happened.
And Mara was in that scene, right?
Yeah.
So did they call Amber Heard for reshoots?
I sure hope not.
She did have
It's
reshoots.
like you fire somebody, but you still bring them back for reshoots on an old movie that she probably doesn't care about?
They're definitely, well, it's definitely that one, but I think even the earlier one when they were for lack of a better term, like the Iceland kind of place, wherever the heck they were at the beginning of the film. I feel like that was new with her and Willem Dafoe.
I don't know. That could have been something that was shot and just didn't make the final cut, though.
It's possible. It's possible. Or
that could have even been footage from Aquaman that was cut and they put it in there. I don't know. But the dream scene is clearly something that was shot for this version.
Oh yeah.
And that's there were two things that came into my mind. Like, if you fired Amber Heard, how do you have the gall to call her back for reshoots on this that I'm going to call a vanity project?
It was probably it may have been before. I mean, because I don't know.
Yeah,
when
but
that took
still,
place.
it's just weird, you know. And then what makes it even more weird is that scene is exactly the same without Amber Heard.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need Mara there. You know who you could put in there instead is Aquaman's mom or something. I don't know. You put somebody else there and it's fine.
I did stand up in my chair and cheer when we heard that Aquaman was dead. I was like, "Woo, sweet
You bastard!"
That's
That's it, man.
Not bad.
This has gone on too far. We need to wrap this up then.
It was so good. Oh, and real quick, Bruce mentioned that he liked it. I like the idea of the extra Flash scene where he's going and to get the job at the dog place or whatever.
Central Bark.
Terrible, but not surprising. I liked all the parts where he's like getting out like a really crummy resume and all that sort of stuff. I think all that's really good. I thought the idea of this slow-mo trying to save who we're only supposed to, my guess is, believe is supposed to be Iris.
Yeah, that's Iris.
They go through all this stuff. The hot dogs flying in the air in slow motion. It feels like a 14-year-old boy is directing this, and his name's Zack Snyder. But it's so overly long. It's bad. He comes off to me as quite creepy when he's doing it.
I agree.
Absolutely.
There's not enough hot dogs. Am I right, Adam?
The hot dogs are flying around in the air.
Not
and
nearly enough hot dogs.
past people's heads. It's just like, come on, bruh. What are we doing here?
Hot dog.
Terrible. Just awful. It was neat, but boy, it needed to be half that
like
length.
the scene. The hot dogs looked cool.
Yeah, they did.
So I like the scene. But you're right. He does come across as kind of creepy, but at the same time, it would also be creepy to say, I find that woman attractive, but if I save her, it'll be creepy. So it's probably better just to let her die so she doesn't know I like her. You know, it's like you're in a can't win situation there. But I think She would have made a cool Iris West if she shows up in the alleged Flash movie.
That was a heck of an explosion.
Boy, the gambit of the DC universe.
Yes.
Who knows what that'll all bring out. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in our special edition of the Dinger Zone. Patreon.com/HMP if you want to take a hold of that. But before we get to our final review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, we have to ask ourselves one very important question: is how does this giant 4-hour epic relate one-to-one with Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. I wrote a Stallone connection for the first time that we reviewed the Justice League, and it was pretty good. But there were some things that Bruce wanted out, so I cut a few lines. Then Bruce said that I had to write a script that was a little lighter in tone, make it a bit more fun. But by the end of the week, Bruce said HMP was going to go in a new direction, thanked me for my time, and told everyone publicly that I wasn't being fired from the Stallone connection, but rather I had some family issues I had to deal with, and that he was going to have Adam write the rest of it. And pancakes, bless him, Adam tried. He really gave what I'm sure what he would consider to be a lot of effort. But the problem is the problem that we all face here. Adam isn't funny. None of us are funny, really. So when he attempted to lighten the tone of my Justice League Stallone connection, he failed miserably. And fans instantly started asking for my version of the Stallone connection. A Shanzi cut, if you will. Hashtag release the Shanzi cut, people would demand on Twitter. And now, just in time for our review of the Snyder Cut Justice League, is the Shanzi cut Justice League Stallone connection. Oh. So here it is. Thanks to you, the fans. This is the unedited version of the Justice League Stallone connection I wrote back in 2017. Enjoy. Do you know what the movie's Batman Begins, Mamma Mia, and salmon fishing? I got to start over. Sorry. I'm trying so hard not to laugh. Do you know what the movies Batman Begins, Mamma Mia, and salmon fishing in the Yemen all have in common? They all occupy our time for a few brief hours so we don't have to think about our eventual deaths. And Darren Bailey, he was the Marine coordinator on all three of those movies. He was also the Marine coordinator for Justice League. Being a Marine coordinator means vast amounts of time working underwater, always aware of death, and learning to work in an environment that's always attempting to kill you. I wonder what this man fears if he does not fear death. Does he fear failure? Keeping his family name in good standing? What? What does this man named Dan Bailey fear? He's worked on movies like The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, and The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2.
What?
I've never seen these movies, and I know no one who has ever spoken about these movies, but they needed a Marine coordinator, and they called in Darren Bailey. And so it is. In 2008, Sylvester Stallone needed a Marine coordinator for his movie called Rambo, a movie that averages 2.5 killings a minute, 466 deaths in all. I felt a kinship with this film. Is it normal to slowly rock back and forth while clapping and exhaling softly to yourself as you watch man after man be murdered by John Rambo? Maybe not. But maybe the abyss stares back at me. According to one source on Rambo, a wild boar got loose on set, and it took 7 guys to take the creature down. I would like to think I am that boar, but if I'm being honest with myself, I'm one of the people tasked with taking down the beast, blissfully complacent in my role in the world I have created. And there you have it, HNPers and Dingalingers. This week's Stallone connection is Marine Coordinator Darren Bailey. Adam and Bruce, this is the 347th episode of this bit, and still no word from Sylvester Stallone.
That bit was so dark and brooding. I loved it.
Well, it originally was way darker. Bruce was not wrong.
Sometimes you gotta, hit that break a little bit. Just tap it. Just tap it.
Man, I just wish that I could get through it without it really does kind of betray the whole thing that I couldn't get through it without Chuck. I'm being very clever right now. I hate it.
And we would hate it if you guys didn't get to hear our final reviews for this. We have our own patented Robin rating system. Check that out over at our Reddit page, reddit.com/r/Hero Movie Podcast. Bruce, where does Zack Snyder's 4-hour Justice League cut fall on the Robin rating system for you?
If it's the length of 2 movies, can I give it 2 Robin ratings?
No, it's 1 and 1 alone.
Oh, no, no way.
You gave this one review earlier, so do it again.
Well, here's what I'm going to say, man. Part 1 is a Jason Todd. I don't care if it does have Superman screaming at the void so that the aliens know to attack. Whenever I rewatch it, I'm going to cut off part 1. I'm going to cut out the cornfield. That's also Jason Todd. For some reason, I hate that cornfield in an irrational way. But I like the rest. I love Darkseid. So my rating is, I guess, a Damian Wayne. But I'm telling you right now, if you start from the beginning, you won't likely see the end. Just go straight to part 2. And then if you're curious about what you missed, go back and find out that I didn't lie to you. Silas, my son, did the perfect thing. He watched 15 minutes, left, played video games for an hour and 45 minutes, came back exactly at the midpoint and finished it out. And he said, that was all right. So do that. Like, don't even hit fast forward or pause, watch a few minutes, go play some video games, come back and finish it. You'll have a definite Damian Wayne minimum.
Choose the 2 hours that you would like to watch best, and then watch those, I guess, is the moral of that story.
But I did like it. But man, I did not like the start. I was very, very nervous when this got started, what I was in for.
Sean, what about you?
I cannot think of a movie I am more indifferent about than this movie. There are parts to it that I like. There are a lot of parts to it where I'm just shaking my head and laughing at just the wrong-headed nature of a lot of the aspects to this movie. Like, why is Jeremy Irons in this movie? You don't need Jeremy Irons to play that role. You could have anybody do that.
All I could think is, look, there's Ozymandias.
Where he's amazing. He's amazing in that. There's no reason for him to be there. There's no reason for a lot of the things that they do. So for me, it is also a Damian Wayne, but it is the lowest Damian Wayne I can give something. So this is a very low Damian Wayne.
For me, I went into this movie wanting to like it. I really did. If you look at the video that I posted 9 months ago on YouTube, links will be in the show notes for it to give you a little background about the Snyder Cut and everything. I said my goal for this is to really enjoy this movie. I want to love it. I want it to be good. I want everything that we do to be good because you know what? We watch enough trash that I want to enjoy myself. I want to look forward to the program that we're going to be watching in every single week. I went in this with the most open of mind. It didn't hurt that the first thing that I saw was it's all in 4:3. I'm not going to lie to you. That did put a little stank on the beginning. And there are areas of this movie, as I've said throughout this, that I really did like. I liked a lot of the Cyborg stuff. Some of the Flash stuff was better than I had expected it to be. Some good moments. But by and large, this movie is trash. It's not good. I think there might be a cut of this that take this and whittle that down to 2 hours, and it might be something that's decent, or it could have just been 2 different movies that had a better through line for each of those movies, as opposed to just this giant 4-hour long cut. And I don't mind long movies. All the Lord of the Rings extended cuts, I like those. I've seen all 3 of those back to back to back in the theater twice. So trust me, long doesn't bother me. It needs to be good. This movie was not good. The score is overbearingly just awful. I wish it was much better than it was. This is a Jason Todd. And here's the thing. This isn't the lowest. That's not, even though Jason Todd, if you look at the Robin rating system, Jason Todd is the lowest one. There is one that's technically lower than that, and that's Chris O'Donnell as Robin, as Jason Todd. So it's not that. It's not the lowest of the low, the ungodly low, but it's the lowest for me. This is a Jason Todd. I cannot see myself watching this 4-hour monstrosity ever again. And we may not have to. So that's a good thing. So that is it, everybody. A nice big giant-sized episode here for you for a giant-sized movie. Don't kill us in the emails for those of you that like Justice League.
For the record, Sean and I both liked it well enough.
They liked it more than I did. So if you're going to have any ire directed towards me, and it won't be any different than what my normal life is, so that's fine. Next week, we're back over because this is our Patreon Appreciation Month, patreon.com/HMP, pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And of course, you get to vote on a movie that we watch. This month, actually, you're getting 2 different times. We had it at the beginning of the month, and we're going to have it here at the end of the month. What are the movies? Well, why don't you go check on out at patreon.com/HMP, and you can vote at any level for that. That's the good part. Plus, you can actually get anything at any level, but we really appreciate it. The most people are in that $5 area. That is the bread and butter of this show. Just imagine if this show disappeared tomorrow, and like we saw in our iTunes review, if this show disappeared tomorrow, would you be upset about it? If you would be, go to patreon.com, put in whatever money that you think that this show is worth, and we really appreciate that, and you'll get more stuff at the exact same time. Can't much beat that. Bruce, until next week, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm always telling people to go to YouTube, man. I've got the YouTube channel up. I've got a solo kind of review on this in case you just want to hear my point of view. I don't know. Some people have already checked that out. And I've also got a great Peter Porker. And coming up on Thursday, people can check out my list of top 10 comic doctors. YouTube.com/C/Bruce Leslie.
I almost watched your Justice League one today, but I was like, no, I don't want to know what he thinks before we're going into the episode here, but I'll definitely be checking that out.
I'll give you a hint. The review was longer than it needed to be. I'm not lying.
Sean, what else?
You can reach us at any of our 30 questions shows. We have Winter Soldier 30 Questions is our newest. Check us out there.
Check out all that. Links are in the show notes for everything. That is it, everybody. Join us next week for our Patreon vote exclusive. For Sweet Sean's a Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marnie and Evie.
I know you come a long way, baby, but you don't need that heart of stone, no. You prove that you can do it, baby. You can make it on your own, but you can't keep running away from love, 'cause the first one let you down, no. And though others try to satisfy you, baby, with me true love can leave your mind the second time, baby.